Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. And maybe it is the central ministry who also help create the silos within the community. In my country, we have a village health volunteer, very successful. So when there's avian flu, the livestock department come into the village and said, hey, we established the livestock volunteer. Then you have another problem, another volunteer. We are trying to create silo within the village as well. So this is one problem that we can create. It. Gentleman here, and then followed by you. Him first.
Well, I'm not such a pessimist, because in fact, every example you've given is from the public sector. If you want to see collaboration around a problem, look at the private sector. People can come together to build the best airline as possible, even from competitive bases. The question is whether the problem is sufficiently supported by resource in order to enable you to find a solution to that problem, and therefore whether the grouping that you're trying to support and help actually feel an engagement with the problem. So the pharmaceutical sector collaborates across a whole series of methodologies. The genomics sector is collaborating in the same way. The biotech sector is collaborating in this way. Automotive industries are collaborating. So let's not just look at models from the public sector. Let's take into the public sector some of the best things, and they're not all good things, but take some of the best things from the private sector, because that's where the universities and others are going to create centers of multidisciplinary activity. The problem with silos, and particularly with training, is that the young people feel that career progression is going to continue through the silo. That in other words, a problem comes together in the short term, and therefore you address that problem in the short term as a center. But if you haven't got your foundation in your silo, your future progression once that problem goes away, if you're not tackling it in a long-term way, there is no career prospect in the long term. And that's why you will always drive back down to your silo for your own personal career progression. So you've got to be very careful how this comes together. So please look at the commercial sector as well as the public sector.
You. This gentleman, the last, and then I'll go to the next question.
Thank you very much. I come from Nepal. Though I am from Ministry of Education, I have some interest in this. And we have been talking about how we can make a package from academic side, from public government sector side. But as you rightly pointed out in earlier conclusion, that the farmers, I mean the people themselves, the beneficiaries themselves, is not well accounted. In fact, we think that this might be good, that might be good, but how they perceive it is very important. For instance, the farmers, how they react with the policy. The productivity sector is the actual farmers. They can produce more. Until and unless they behave in a way we feel, we cannot expect that there will be a higher productivity, higher production. So that in the productivity side, when the farmers are given the policy that they can really feel they could grow. They have been growing, but the perishable, they are growing perishable things, but within a few days that will be perished, but that is not well marketed. So that the collaboration has to come there between farmers and the private sectors. If the government sector could intervene, public sector could intervene, that the farmers' products will receive the good price. That is something, then they can grow more. Otherwise, what happens, they won't be taking risk. Similarly, people in India and in South Asia, if you think about, people may have, the contracted land, but they don't like to contract in a way that they could have more productivity, they could grow more. But what they tend to do is they like to lease the land in a 50-50 basis, so that neither the owner invest in the land nor the farm tenant invest in the farm. Finally, what happens, the productivity is quite low. So that we have to have a policy that the government should help them to minimize the risk that they feel after their product. Because they might be
Can you
feeling
conclude?
risk to do, so that linking with this with the health, if we link it with school feeding and I mean, as we have been talking about pregnant
No,
mother.
no, you have to conclude now.
So
Because-
these sort of things could be helpful while devising policy. Thank you.
Thank you. I want everyone to be short so that we can have more people idea. 1.5 hours is very short to get every people idea. So please be brief. I try to touch on this issue, tackle this issue of collaboration, partnership, because it is the main issue addressed this morning. And it is the main concern of this conference, I think. Working together. And we can see example from private sector, even public sector, as Dominic mentioned about the malaria and irrigation, intermittent irrigation. In summary, from what we have discussed, first, we need a forum to talk. We need a forum to talk. This forum doesn't have to be officially instituted, but people who share the same concerns from different sectors to talk. Second, after talk, we act in what we think that we can act together to go for a win-win situation. And then we learn from what we act. Now this morning, there was a proposal, I think from one of the a keynote, talking about special tax on those who create the problem, like Pepsi. 50% of energy coming from direct yak, soft drink, sugar, right? Fast food, McDonald's, whatever. Can we tax them? Additional tax, we already tax them, I know. Put additional tax, like many countries, put additional tax on tobacco and alcohol, like my country, and put that into a special fund for health promotion. Can we learn from something like the Global Fund for AIDS, TB, and malaria? Previously, these people don't work together. WHO, UNAIDS, World Bank, development partners. But because of the strong social movement and strong political support from the UNSG and their leaders, they come together and put money into a single pot called the Global Fund, and they work together like hell there. Can we use this additional? First, should we have additional levy on all the possible harmful agricultural products so that we reduce the consumption, like reduce the consumption of meat? Second, should we put this, if we should do that, should we put this into a collective fund for everyone to work together to use this fund to improve collaboration on agriculture, environment, and health? This is a very specific question that I derived from this morning discussion. I want reaction. Maybe lady first.
Do we need a fund, is what you're asking? A tax and to fund the fund. No. I think we have plenty of examples of why that might not work. And I'd like to, if I can try and articulate this quickly. The point was made this morning in plenary that agriculture is not for health or nutrition. Generally, in many perhaps smallholder and subsistence type systems, it is about feeding yourself and your family. But in an international context, it's not necessarily about
to make money.
It's to make money. Now, money is important, and money contributes to health and development. There's no doubt. So, to me, the challenge is how to harness the money-making potential of agriculture and shift it to health. And it's not, I think a tax is not going to do it. It'll simply divert more production for biofuels, for example. So it's more of a shift in thinking and drawing from public sector examples, for example, tobacco control, things that have worked to shift production into a pro-health way, but not necessarily in a punitive way. It has to be in a constructive way. And I'd like to admit fully that a lot of the nice examples we have of collaboration and of success and of achieving change has been at a community or a set of communities level. Some of the international movements like the One Health movement that could be moving us towards, at least on the zoonotic disease side, towards more intersectorality are all talk and no action, as far as I can tell. So the challenge we face is scaling up of the experience of where we know that intersectoral collaboration, research in combination with stakeholder engagement and research into policy, where that has worked. What we need is to really understand better in this context of agriculture and particularly the links between animal agriculture and health, to understand better how we can scale that up. And I think it's an enormous challenge. It's an enormous challenge because the economic drivers of livestock production are not nutrition or health oriented at all.
Thank you. I want to turn to my tobacco man here. He's a cardiologist and epidemiologist, so his interest is in tobacco. Tobacco is a good example that when you increase the tax, you reduce the consumption. And also you can put this additional levy into special fund to do something. Do you agree? For in terms of example from tobacco, bringing it to collaboration between agriculture and health.
Well, basically, I think we have to look at taxation as principally a national policy issue and not necessarily an international policy issue. Though some harmonization across international borders is also helpful, like in tobacco, to prevent smuggling across borders. But clearly, raising prices by raising taxes will drive down consumption in most non-essential goods. And tobacco is an example of that, and it's been seen to work. And it is also, as for example, in Thailand and even to some extent in other parts like Victoria in Australia and elsewhere, help to set up health promotion funds which have funded health promotion activities. Whether that example can be followed even in the food and agriculture sector, again, we have some examples of pricing being used as a mechanism for behavior change and consumption patterns. For example, in Mauritius, where palm oil was substituted by soya in the public distribution system as the subsidized oil for popular consumption. That brought down the prices of soya and increased the price of palm oil. And that shifted the population towards consumption of the healthier oil with benefits in terms of reduction of mean cholesterol levels in the population. Similarly, in Poland, import of vegetable oils and withdrawal of subsidies for animal fats shifted the pattern. So these are essentially national level actions. To some extent, they can be harmonized across international borders. But since you specifically asked me on tobacco, I would also like to say, take up from where Dominic said. Dominic said agriculture is principally seen as a commercial activity, which is important. However, I think we need to shift the paradigm from being it seen merely as a commercial activity to being a developmental activity. And it has to be accommodated in the paradigm of sustainable development. If we do that, then we recognize that many of these commercial crops need to be replaced. Like, for example, we have often in the health sector failed to message regarding tobacco to other sectors. We project it only as a health issue, saying that it kills about 5.5 million people per year, which is important. But it is also an important issue for food security. It is unconscionable that in this era, when we are worried about food security and increasing agricultural production, 4.2 million hectares of arable land is devoted to a crop which not only kills people, but is water intensive, is pesticide intensive, and also results in a huge amount of deforestation, because for curing tobacco, you need to burn wood. For every 300 cigarettes smoked anywhere, someone somewhere has killed a tree. So it's environmentally dangerous. it is militates against the concept of food security. At the same time, it's a health hazard. It is incumbent upon us to tie up these messages together and then project it to policymakers, saying that commercially it might be a viable crop, but in terms of sustainable development, it just doesn't fit into the picture.
Have you convinced your agricultural sector to agree with you?
We are getting started. We are getting
Oh, okay,
started.
okay.